everybody, it's Sarah the Attic Stitcher. Today is February 28th, 2026, and this is Flosstube 15, I'm pretty sure. I should have checked on that. But it's another month done, so this is my February wrap-up. So this is all of the stitching that I have done in the month of February, and I'm excited to get to share that with you all. If you're a new viewer, welcome. I'm glad you're coming to spend some time with me. I hope you get inspired by any of the projects that I'm sharing with you today. If you're returning, thanks again for coming back. I greatly appreciate it. And if you're not subscribed and you enjoy your time with me, feel free to hit the subscribe button so that way you can keep up to date with what I'm doing if that interests you. So we're just going to get into it. I'm going to post this tomorrow on the 1st, but I'm recording it today because tomorrow I am not going to have any time whatsoever to do any lick of recording or editing or posting. And it's a beautiful day, so I'm recording this before lunch so that way I can enjoy the rest of this beautiful glimpse of spring weather that we have today, because next week is going to be all rain. So, and I am ready for some warm spring weather. So I've got the windows open, so it's like extra bright in here today, and yeah, it's just great. So with that, today I have to share with you, let me look at my notes here, one finish, one new start, and I worked on five different projects. So just to kind of go over my stats, especially compared to last month. So I started keeping kind of an electronic journal of my stats. So if I ever stitch, even if it's just putting one thread into a project, I mark that day in my little Google Doc and then list whatever projects I work on, and then I keep track of stats of like, okay, this is a new start this month, or this is a finish that I did this month, this is how many projects altogether I touched this month, and so on and so forth. So last month in January, let me go up to January, I stitched on 9 projects. I finished 1, I started 2, and I spent a total of 24, hello Kit Kat, I spent a total of 24 out of 31 days in January stitching. I kind of had a feeling that January was going to be an outlier when it comes to stitching time, because January I spent like 2 weeks working from home because we had snow. And you know, when you're working from home, whereas, you know, if I was in the office and I had that little bit of downtime between projects or waiting for something to come in, I was just sitting there. Whereas at home, I could then kind of take that time to do either something around the house or put some stitching in on a project and what have you. So I had a lot of extra stitching time last month than I did this month. So compared to last month, I stitched on 5 projects versus 9. I finished 1. Last month I finished 1. I started 1. Last month I started 2. And last month I stitched 24 out of 31 days. This month I stitched 15 out of 28 days. So I feel like even though February is a shorter month, are you gonna do it? Hey, look at you. The cat tree is right there. So even though February is a shorter month, I still feel like I got some good stitch time in and stuff. And I feel like 15 days is probably a more accurate representation of the amount of stitching time that I get in a month. So my most stitched project this month was Lunar Nap, and my least stitched project was Pride and Prejudice. So we're going to share. We'll start with my finish for the month, which is the finish that I was really hoping to get done this month. I was hoping to have it fully finished, but I've been having trouble finding a frame for it. And that is Lunar Nap from Sprouting Lupine. Let me pull up the stats here. So Lunar Nap, I started this on January 2nd, 2026, and I finished it February 19th, 2026. This is on a 28 count Gothic Lugana using the called for DMC, other than there was one thread color that was out of stock when I went to the store, and I didn't have it in stash. I think it was like 03 or something like that. It was one of the single digit colors. And so I just kind of did a blend of two of the colors already in the pattern to kind of fill in those areas. And then I adjusted where some of the colors are used at to kind of more closely match my friend's cat who I'm stitching this for. This is going to be a gift to a friend who had to put her cat down shortly before Christmas this past year. So there she, or it, I don't know, it's a project. There's my stitching. So like I said, I pretty much did this all as it's called for to be stitched, except I left some of the stars out at the bottom, and instead in the DMC silver diamond thread, I kind of couched and put in her cat's name, which is Nova. So there is my finish. So once I find a frame, I'm struggling because like in the store, you can easily find like a 4x4 or a 6x6. This is a 5x5. So, and I wanted it to have like no margin between the frame and the stitching, but I think I'm gonna have to compromise and get like a 6x6 frame and just have a little bit of the, you know, which isn't much. I mean, what will show through the frame will be less than an inch margin between the stitching and the frame. So I think I'm just gonna have to compromise. So I might go out this afternoon and see if I can't find a 6x6 frame. So that way I can get this framed and sent out or sent off to my friend. And then I've got like a whole other half. Here's the back. I won't be shy. I'll show off my back. Let me, so that way I can make any comments if I feel like I need to make a comment. But yeah, there's my back. I didn't feel bad about, you know, traveling as far as I did on some of these stars because it's such a dark fabric that they're not gonna show through. But then I have all this extra fabric on the side to do another project of some sort. Another small. So, but I was very grateful that I was able to get this finished, and today my goal is to see if I can't find a frame so that way I can send it off to my friend next month. But that is Lunar Nap from Sprouting Lupine. I think in total, let's see here, I spent 9 days stitching on it this month. And last month I spent 9 days stitching on it. So in total, 18 days of stitching went into this project. Some of those days I might have just put in like one length of thread on it. And then some of those days I would sit down and do like a good few hours working on it. So, but roughly 18 days is what it took of actual like stitching is what it took for me. So even though I had this going for more than a sister is chasing her tail. I'll have to insert a clip because I have a clip of her from the other day chasing her tail. It's adorable. So even though I had this going for more than a month, it was only 18 days of actual stitching on it. And like I said, some of those days I didn't stitch a ton on it. Some of those days I stitched quite a bit on it. I'm gonna get me a drink of water. You get that tail, girl. So that was my finish for my new start. This is one that, again, you all should be aware of from last time. I said that if I could find and order the fabric to use on it, then I would be starting that. And that is Teresa Wentzler's Tradewinds. Try not to show too much of a glare. So one thing about having the window or well, I don't have the windows open because it's a little chilly this morning to have the windows open, but I do have the shades open. So that's Teresa Wentzler's Tradewinds. This is my new memorial stitch for my dad, who passed away at the end of 2024. He was a Navy man and he loved ships. So this just, it makes me think of him. So that's that. And I stitched on this for 4 days this month. And if you follow me on my Instagram, you have seen my progress already because I shared it just a couple of days ago, and I don't think I thought I was going to have a chance after sharing that on my Instagram. I thought I was going to have another chance to stitch some more on it, and I haven't. So, but here it is. I should pull up my stats for it. So I started this February 12th. This is on a 32 count embellished linen from Atomic Ranch Fabrics. I'm using all the called for little kitted threads and beads for it. I started in the top left corner because this is just, to me it made sense. I don't want like a huge margin, so I've got enough for like an inch and a half margin, and then for finishing it. And I've started on the frame because the big recommendation for Teresa Wentzler is start from the outside and go in. So that is what I'm doing. So I started with this corner piece, which was really cool. So this is all done other than adding in, there's a little bit of back stitching that's going to go in these light squares. These squares, these little dots that you all can see. So you like back stitch around those little squares and then you put a bead there. Trying not to get the shadow of my camera in there. And then I went down and started working on one of the mermaids. So I have actually, and it's going to take up pretty much this entire, I think it's going to almost take up this whole piece of linen. This has been really fun to work on. I'm really enjoying the process, and so far, and I feel like so many people talk about how Teresa Wentzler's are so complicated because there's so many blends and stuff. Now, I have heard a lot of people say that Tradewinds is one of the easier stitches that you can do from Teresa. So I will definitely say this has been so much fun. Even with all the blends that I have had to do just in this little corner rivet and this mermaid section, this has been so much fun. I have enjoyed stitching on this immensely. It's been a lot of fun to stitch, so that gives me good vibes for the rest of the stitch. I had intended to stitch the mermaid's skin 1/1, but it was after I'd already put in a lot of her skin that I realized that I'd done it 2/2, which is how it's called for. And I didn't want to undo any of that stitching, so it is staying as it is. So that is Tradewinds. Okay, my next project, go back over here, is Cats and Floral Hats. I spent 2 days stitching on this, and so by a number of days, it's actually tied with my least stitch project, which is Pride and Prejudice. I only spent 2 days on Cats and Hats and 2 days on Pride and Prejudice. However, I have spent a lot more time on those 2 days stitching on Cats and Hats versus Pride and Prejudice. So that's why it's not my least stitch of the month. And actually, I am so close to finishing. I was determined last weekend when I was working on this to finish it. But, and let me just pull it up and show you. Excuse me, my nose is itchy. Here is where I'm at. This is the last cat on 4, so let me unroll it here. So there's the 4. And so I'm working on this last one. Let me roll it back up and I'll go over the stats while I do. So Cats and Floral Hats, this is from Pam Kellog. I started this January 19th, 2023. So this is my longest, oldest whip. It is the first cross-stitch project I started after I picked cross-stitch up as a hobby. This is on a 14 count ivory Aida. I'm using the called for DMC 2/1. It comes with a border that you can stitch, which is a lot of back stitch and a lot of French knots. I have opted not to stitch that because on Aida the French knots are horrendous. And then once I finish this, there's a couple of spots where I want to add some bead embellishments, so that will be coming. But here's my progress. So I had previously finished these pink feathers here, a little bit of this green, this like little section of green, and the cat. So the rest of this hat brim, this pink feather, these purple feathers, and these little bit of green leaves, the start of green leaves, are all what I stitched on. And I was making really good progress. There is one color of purple left for these little like periwinkle flowers. And I was stitching on it and I got to that last purple and went to pull it out, and I do not have it. It is not anywhere in any of the stash that I have. It's not in my master tray of flosses. I went through all of my projects. I do not have this purple. That is the last color purple for these purple flowers, because I was going by like motifs. So like I finished the green brim of the hat, then I finished the pink feather, and then I went and was going to finish the purple flowers, and then I was going to do the leaves, and then I was going to do the big lily in the center of the hat last, which, now that I think about it, would be horrible for a cat to have a giant lily in its hat, especially if it was a fake lily, okay, but if it was a real lily in the hat, oh man, not good. If you don't know, lilies are highly toxic to cats. Like if your cat gets a little bit of like the pollen and stuff, it can kill them. So lilies are not great for cats. Then I just made that connection. But anyways, so I was like, well, okay, I'll just wait until I can get that thread, and then I will just stitch on the other things. But it totally threw off my groove. So when I went to start on doing the leaves, because I'll save the center yellows for the purple flowers for when I do the lily, because those colors are in the lily, it just threw off my groove for that color to be missing. And I put in one color on the leaves and was like, no, I can't. I need that purple so I can finish these flowers, and then I can move on to the leaves. Like, I don't know. It's just how my brain has decided I need to finish this project. And I could not get myself to divert from that. So, not finished yet, but closer. So, like I said, I stitched on this for 2 days, and I spent a good amount of time stitching on it. So, I definitely feel like very soon that is going to be a finish. Okay, next up is Pride and Prejudice. So this is my least stitch on project because, like I said, I only stitched on this for 2 days, and I did not get as much stitching done on this as I dropped my scissors. Much stitching done on this as I did on Cats and Floral Hats. So this had 2 days of stitching, and here it is. I still got it in the Q-snap because I'd been working on it. So I finished Jane's dress. I, for some reason, also do not own the color for Jane's skin. So Jane's skin, well, and pretty much all of the skin for all of the little people, I do not have that, so that's another thread that I need to buy next time I am buying threads, so I can fully finish Jane. And then I feel like there was one other color that I was missing, but I think that might have been it. But otherwise, Jane's dress, I'm gonna move you all ever so slightly to see if I can not show off my crazy dirty. Look at all those little dots right there. Oh, my hand is shaky. Those little dots right there are Kitten's toy mice. She loves those things. I had bought a package of bulk mice because she'll be playing with them and throwing them everywhere, and sometimes they end up in the litter box, and the litter box is a little robot, so I don't clean out the litter box because the robot just rotates, and so they oftentimes get thrown away with the waste from the litter box. So I buy them in bulk packages, and she had discovered where I had left the bulk package of mice and got out like 20 mice at one time. So there's lots of mice laying around. So anyways, let's see. Oh, no. If I angle you all up, haha, here we go. I figured it out. So I stitched all of Jane's dress, and then I came over here and started on Lizzie's dress. And what was left on Jane's dress was just this striping in the middle and like her little belt. And so then with Lizzie, I've got the little trim on the bottom of her dress, and then started up with this red. Ignore my dangly thread. That's for whenever I start working over this way. Let me move you all back now. Apologies. Trying not to do it too much and all of that. So I did say that I was probably going to get this out some more this month because something about February just makes me feel Pride and Prejudice. So I did that. I'm stitching this one. Ooh, let me pull up my details. I'm stitching this 1/1 with the called for DMC on a 32 count antique white Lugana that I then dyed with coffee. So it's more of like a tan, and in some spots the coffee, like, part of me wishes that I had like done it more and let it set longer to get more of this modeling. But after I'd like dyed it the tan with just coffee, I kind of scrunched it up and then sprinkled coffee grounds on it to get that kind of model look. So I'm like, I could have done that a little more, but I was so nervous because this was like my third project ever starting, and I'm doing it 1/1. So it takes a lot more time to do because the stitching is so small. So, but I was excited to make that progress on it. I started this May 21st, 2023. And like I said, this is my third oldest project. Okay, and look, I don't know if you all noticed, I have my little, because I've still got Lizzie's, the thread going from Lizzie's, it's just coming through on the back. My needle minder that I got for my birthday. One of the needle minders that I got for my birthday last month. So that is that. Next, my last work in progress for this month was Ophelia from Mirabilia. This is what she will look like. This was my birthday month start that I started last month. I have been admiring Ophelia for so long, and I had been going between, oh, do I want to start Queen Titania? Do I want to start Ophelia? Back and forth. And so I had settled on starting Ophelia. So I started Ophelia January 3rd, 2026 on a 32 count moss Belfast linen with the called for threads and beads, 2/2. And here she is. I have mainly been working on her hair. So I'm like, almost like color completing her hair. So this, what my hand is covering, is basically all new. I didn't have any of this last time I shared it. So that's what I was working on for these last, how many days? 4 days that I spent on her this month. I actually had this morning worked on her, and I had some in here that I had stitched, and then realized when I was like, after I finished it, I was like, okay, I know I like triple checked as I was counting, because I did a little bit of jumping to get to that section that I had worked on. I was like, I know I had like triple checked it, but let me quadruple check it. And it was in that quadruple checking that I realized I was half a stitch off, and it was just going to throw everything else off. So I had to undo everything, almost everything that I did this morning, which was kind of disappointing, but such is life. So yeah, not a very exciting progress, but progress nonetheless on Ophelia from Mirabilia, Nora Corbett. And I love her. Set her down there. And that was my whips. So I have plans to go over, or some plans to go over, and then a little bit of just haul, like a little tiny haul. I don't know if you could even call it a haul. It's 2 patterns that I bought secondhand. And then just some like made me happy this month things. So, and a book to go over. So you can stay for plans if you're just interested in the cross stitch. If you want to stay for the haul, you can stay for the haul after the plans. I know some people are not interested in haul, so you don't have to stay for that if you don't want to. And if that's all you want to stay around for, that's fine. Thanks for coming and spending some time with me. But if you want to stay for the rest and just kind of hear about some things that made me happy this month and see what I purchased and all of that, I'll share that after plans. So for plans in March, at the end, well, towards the middle endish of March, I will be having surgery again. This is to put a tube in my left ear. I've been struggling this past year with a lot of ear pain, and just like some clogged and draining problems. So the ENT doctor I went to, we did a hearing test. He's like, the ear itself is functioning, like the eardrum and stuff is functioning the way it should. So he's like, but the way I'm describing the issues that I've been having, he said, that tells me that this tube that goes down is probably struggling, and that could have been related to the stress of the past year, kind of, and the way I've been like clenching and stuff could have caused some damage there. So we're gonna put a tube in that will hopefully alleviate the like pressure, clogged feeling that I've been having and give a chance for that to kind of heal up. So then maybe I won't have that issue anymore, because that would be great. So I will be having surgery, and it's not like they're like putting a tube in your ear. It's going to take more time to get you prepped than it is to actually do. So it's a pretty quick outpatient surgery. Everybody I talk to says getting tubes put in your ear as an adult is the worst recovery. Like as a child, it's not really a big deal. They don't have as much of an issue. And I'm like, is that because the recovery is easier, or is that because they're children who can't really communicate as well with what they're feeling? So everybody keeps telling me that with adults, it's a crappy recovery. And so but it's like no one who has gotten them done as adults has told me that, because I don't know anybody who's gotten them done as an adult. So I'm like, is that true, or is that just what gets around the grapevine? So I don't know, but if I had known that turning 30 was going to mean that I was going to start having all these medical problems, I would say no turning 30 for me. But hopefully that will. So anyways, long story long, I'm going to have surgery at the end of March for putting tubes in my ear. And based off of how I recovered last year from having the melanoma removed from my face, I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to be feeling after the surgery. Because this also wasn't like I was under for 30 minutes for that, basically. Like, it was a very quick procedure too, but the recovery afterwards was crappy. And I think that's more to do with just how my body responds to the anesthesia. Like, I wake up easy, like I wake up really easy from anesthesia, and stuff, and recover well in that regards, but just my body feels horrible afterwards, just based off of that one experience and from when I had my wisdom teeth taken out. So anyways, long story long, having surgery, not sure how that's going to affect at the end of the month, so it might be a shorter stitch month than, excuse me, I'm like, I need to adjust, a shorter stitch month than even February was. But of course, for sure, I'm going to keep pulling out Tradewinds as my memorial stitch for my dad. You know, that's one that I don't want to let sit for a long time. My poppies for dad I worked on for like 6 months before finishing. I don't expect that I'll get Tradewinds done in 6 months because it is a much larger and more involved piece than poppies for dad was, but I don't want to let it sit around. You know, a year at most is what I would like to spend on Tradewinds. So that one's definitely going to keep coming out regularly in rotation. It would be great to finish Cats and Hats, but I'm not committing to that. I've decided that is apparently my Achilles heel, is if I commit to saying that I'm finishing Cats and Hats this next month, I don't get anywhere close. So we'll see if I pull it out. But otherwise, I have an urge to start a new project, but I told myself I had to finish, because I finished Lunar Nap, and then I was like, I really want to start another project, but I was like, no, Sarah, you're still in double digits. I have 11 projects currently going. You have to finish one more before you can finish, or you have to finish one more before you can allow yourself to start a new one. So if I'm able to finish Cats and Hats in March, I think I'm going to start a new project. And it's one that I'm going to kit up from whatever I have in the stash, because I don't think I've ever shared this. I'm Catholic, and it is currently the liturgical season of Lent. And so from Ash Wednesday, which happened February 18th, until Easter, we participate in abstaining from things. Fasting, almsgiving, prayer are like the three things that we like focus on. So we fast from something, we do almsgiving, and we increase our prayer, because it's like this time leading up to the resurrection. Anyways, I can go on and on about that. So for me, what I've done is I've deleted all the social media apps off of my phone. So I'm still getting on my computer, because I don't really get on my computer that much, and I only really get on my computer when I'm working on cross stitch. And when I'm working on cross stitch, I'm working on cross stitch. So maybe for like 5 minutes, I'll get on Facebook and Instagram and go through things. But that's it. Because I was like, so much of my time was being spent on my phone, on social media. So I gave that up. So I don't have any social media on my phone. And I also have given up spending money other than food. Like, I'm going to buy food, and of course paying my bills and stuff, because, you know, you're a responsible adult and you have to do that. That's just a fact of life. I'm adjusting again. I'm getting comfy. This is a good chair for sitting crisscross applesauce. So, anyways, so if I start a new project in March, it has to be from stash. I do have some ideas on what I will start, but we'll see if I even accomplish finishing Cats and Hats before I entertain the idea of actually collecting the materials for my stash for that. And that's another reason why I'm like, I just realized I don't have one color to finish Cats and Hats, and I can't buy it because it's Lent, and I gave that up. So I'm not starting a new project in March. Okay. Anyways, so yeah, keep working on Tradewinds, try to put some more time in on cats and hats, and just whatever calls to me, because I'm definitely not starting something new because I can't finish cats and hats without the one color. I had already looked through my threads to see if there was one that could be used in place, and no, I don't have a color that could work for that. So anyways, so yeah, that will be my plans. Pretty simple plans for March. Haul. So if you want to stay around, you're welcome to stay around. If you're ready to go and watch the next Flosstuber, you go and enjoy that. Thanks for spending some time with me. So haul, I just have 2 patterns. I bought these. I think I had already purchased them when I recorded my last video. They just hadn't come in yet. And they're 2 patterns that I got from a D-Stash group online. And they're both from the Sweetheart Tree. So the first one is the Victorian Rose Sampler. And that, like, it's really pretty. It's really pretty. It's also out of print, I looked up. And of course, it uses Magnifica beads, which are extremely difficult to come across. So if I ever get around, well, I say if, whenever I get around to stitching this one, I'm just gonna, you know, base the beads off of if I have it in stash or whatever. So, but that is the first pattern that I bought, which is, and this was before Lent, the Victorian Rose Sampler from the Sweetheart Tree. It's just really pretty. I feel like it would make a really great, like, wedding gift kind of deal. But it's really neat. It just has a bunch of different stitches and all of that. So, and then the other one, which is the one that I was like, yeah, this is the one I want. I want this. Is the Irish Blessing Sampler from the Sweetheart Tree. So this is the one I saw. I was like, yep, I want that. And then I was like, to make it worth the shipping and stuff, I found a second pattern out of them that I wanted to spend. But I've been to Ireland twice in my life, and it's a place I could keep going back to and back to and back to. I love it. There's just something every time both the times I've gone, that it felt like home. So, I just loved it. And so it's the Irish Blessing. May your blessings outnumber the shamrocks that grow, and may trouble avoid you wherever you go. And it's just, again, it's really, really pretty. And like, these shamrocks are done with satin stitch, and it's just a bunch of different other kind of specialty type stitches and beads and stuff. So, and it has like this little silver shamrock charm. I think you can still order that from the Sweetheart Tree because this one's still in print, but I don't want to pay the shipping just for one little charm from them. So I'll just find something at the store or whatever to use instead whenever I do it. I did think that if I was going to start a project next month, Irish Blessing Sampler would be very appropriate because March has St. Patrick's Day. But I'm not starting a project next month because I can't finish the one that I'm closest to finishing. So that was my haul, and there won't be any haul in March. So with that, I forget that I lock it almost every time because I have cats who very often knock it over. Things that make me happy. Brewmate cups, because they have the locking lid, so when it's locked, nothing comes out. It's beautiful. When you have cats or children that knock things over, that's great. So yeah, for those of you who want to stick around a little longer, I did read one book this month, The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. It was a library book. I had to return it to the library. I actually kept it extra days. It was due for like a week before I returned it. Thankfully, my library is wonderful and does not have late fees. But I was like, I'm so close to finishing this. I can't return it yet. So I finished it and then immediately gave it back to the library. But I read The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. It was good. I did not connect to it, I think, in a way a lot of people have, which is fine. I don't have to connect to every story that a lot of people do. I did enjoy it. I did think it had a lot of great themes, and some of the prose was just beautiful. There were a couple of points where I was like, that was a really good quote or something like that. But I just didn't connect to the characters. I wanted something more. I wanted a little more depth. It's a young adult novel, so it's like 18 to 25 age range, and I could just not be in the age range for that. I could see that if I had read it in that 18 to 25 range, I think I probably would have connected to and enjoyed it a lot more. But as a 31-year-old adult, the writing felt a little juvenile, which makes sense because it is young adult. And I just wanted a little more depth. I felt like if I could get a little more depth with the characters and a little more depth to the story, and when I say a little more depth, I don't know. I felt like everything was a little surface layer. And I do believe there is a sequel to The House in the Cerulean Sea, so maybe I would get my depth that I'm looking for in the sequel, but I felt like everything was kind of surface layer, and I just wanted a little deeper than surface layer. But I think that if you enjoy found family tropes, of course it's LGBTQ representation, which was really cool, diverse fantasy. I think if you like any of that kind of tropes and stuff, you would probably enjoy The House in the Cerulean Sea. I think especially if you enjoy the found family trope. So I will say that if you struggle with, like, there's themes of like foster care and orphan and abuse, both child-like abuse and governmental abuse and stuff. If you struggle with any of those themes, just kind of be aware that those themes are touched on throughout the book. But again, even though it didn't click for me, I think it was a good book. And I would not be afraid to recommend it to anybody who enjoys those types of tropes or themes. And if you just want, like, you don't have to think too hard about what's happening. You're kind of fed what's happening. If you need something easy to read like that, it would be another reason, I think, to pick up The House in the Cerulean Sea. And also, like I said, there were points where I had to like set it down and be like, that was a really good quote. That was some really good prose. But again, I felt like I wanted it to go a little deeper. It felt a little surface level to me on these themes throughout it. And so I wanted a little bit more. So that was my book for February. And next, my nail polish I have on currently. I hide my head behind, yeah, I was like, I'm pretty sure the phone camera recognizes my face, and so it stays focused on my face if I leave it uncovered. But so it's like a really nice red wine color. It's Merlot from ILNP nail polish. It's so much darker in the bottle. If I did a third layer, it would probably be closer to the color in the bottle, but I only did 2 layers. I just put it on last night because tomorrow, the reason that I'm not going to be able to record and post tomorrow is I'm going to see The Phantom in the Opera with some friends. The Phantom at the Opera with some friends, which I've seen before. I saw it on stage in London back in 2019, and having watched like a recorded version of the play, didn't like the recorded version, didn't like the story, didn't feel any kind of connection. Seeing it in person, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So it's on tour, so tomorrow we're going to go and see it, and this felt like a very Phantom of the Opera appropriate nail color. And I do love making my nails look pretty because I look at my nails a lot when cross-stitching. And the last thing that I just want to share is something that gave me joy. So Bath & Body Works released their Princess Collection for 2026. So they had Rapunzel, Tiana, Belle, Mulan, Snow White, Aurora, and then like their general princess. And I went to the store. I usually don't like Bath & Body Works because they're so strong. But I went to the store because I was like, it's Rapunzel. I've got to check it out. I had been considering purchasing the candle holder, but it was sold out at the store, and looking at the others, I was like, it doesn't make financial sense for me to do that. So, but I did buy the Rapunzel candle. The candle smells fantastic. I think if I, what's my brain trying to say? The candle is fantastic. I think candles are probably the main reason for me to get anything from Bath & Body Works. It's a 3-wick candle. So at the store, I went with my sister. I also got the Aurora scented body spray because I'm getting low on my body spray, and that's one of the other things. I didn't get the Rapunzel body spray, even though Rapunzel's my favorite princess, because the body spray for Rapunzel smelled very alcohol-y, and their Aurora one did not have that strong like alcohol scent to it. So, and I enjoyed the scent for Aurora for the body spray. So, but I did get the Rapunzel candle. I had it originally in the store. The store was sold out of the 3-wick, so I had bought the 1-wick, single-wick candle, and then like the very next day knocked it off of my table and broke it. So I was like, I guess that's my sign to order the 3-wick candle from online. So I ordered the 3-wick candle online, and I also at the same time ordered the Snow White candle, because in the store, it's got an apple fruity base to it, and it just feels very like summery of a scent. And yeah, so I was like, does it have the scent notions on here? Mystic red apple, ripened fruits, enchanted woods, the kindest paths lead to love. It's the fragrance notes. So it felt very spring summery, and I enjoyed the scent. So I got the candle for Snow White too, to make it worth the shipping. And yeah, those are the things that made me happy this month. So thanks for spending time with me. Thanks for listening to me kind of ramble on. And I hope you all have some wonderful stitching time. And I'll be back in March, at the end of March, to do my March wrap-up. And we'll see you all later. Bye!